Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today we're checking out an omnibus that I didn't originally pick up because basically I had its entirety in single issues, but just to be a little X-Men omnibus completionist, I do have it now. So without further ado, let's take a look at the X-Men Judgment Day Avengers Eternals omnibus. Okay, and here is the cover of the omnibus that I went with. It is the variant one that is illustrated by Alex Ross. I'm such a big Alex Ross fan, and he knocked this one out of the park. Look at all our characters here. Look at how great they look. Just phenomenal. And here is the spine of the book. We've got the Axe logo, Avengers, X-Men Eternals, and it says Judgment Day, just in case you needed the spelling of Judgment Day there. And we've also got Wolverine on the spine, striking an action pose. And here is the back of the book, featuring an image of one of the Celestials, and also Earth shall be judged, and a little bit about the book here. So for those of you who don't know, this event came out at a time where the X-Men comics in particular, and I'm sure the other ones too, maybe I just am not, an ongoing Avengers or Eternals reader, although I know there was very, very good things said about the Eternals at this time too. But the X-Men books were just in such a fantastic place. We had Immortal X-Men at its height, and we had X-Men Red at its height, among some other really, really good moments in some other series. So when news of this event sort of came out, I think a lot of people were really hesitant, and I've expressed this opinion a lot on the channel before, but historically I've not been a huge fan of events, and specifically event omnibuses, because they'll throw in all the tie-ins, and there will just be so much irrelevance, and a lot of the tie-ins will just be super surface level, and not really great, I think. I'm casting broad strokes, but that has been my experience. So I was really worried that this event would throw off the momentum of the Krakoa era X-Men stuff, which the momentum got a little fuzzy anyway, but then it felt like it was starting to really pick back up again. I'm sort of getting way off the point though. My point is that as far as events go, this one, it's not bad. I think it's pretty good actually. There is fat to be cut for sure, but the way that the Judgment Day storyline was integrated into the X line of books, at least, I thought worked. And we had some really cool moments. Okay, but let's talk about what the Judgment Day event actually is for those of you who don't know. So basically, as I said, this is Krakoa era X-Men, Krakoa era mutants. They are on their island, they're thriving, and the Eternals have had their own sort of shake-up in their hierarchies at the time, I suppose. Druig essentially becomes the Prime Eternal and declares that mutants are a deviation, and as part of what the Eternals are there to do with Earth, they have to exterminate those deviations. And I think the sort of main catalyst for this was the fact that the mutants were able to use their resurrection protocols to, outrun death. But of course, not all of the Eternals agree with this, and Ajax and Cersei, they align themselves with the Avengers and the mutants, and basically they come together to create a new celestial god, the Progenitor, to impose peace. However, that god, that celestial, turns out to sort of determine that, yeah, humanity's not worth it, and this planet should be destroyed unless the worth can be proven. And the Progenitor sort of goes around and is making these judgments on a lot of these characters that we know and love. There's some pretty cool visual components to these too. Like, for example, Charles Xavier's judgment doesn't show up as the Progenitor, but it actually shows up as Legion. And I won't spoil the verdict of that judgment, but I think maybe we can connect the dots. And just to be super clear, these aren't black and white judgments. If a character passes or if a character fails, it's not necessarily, just know that it's based off the moral alignment of what the Progenitor, the celestial they just created, thinks at the time. And those are really great moments of the series, I think. I mean, we see outside of the X-Men even, people like Captain America get their moral judgment. We see Daredevil fail his moral judgment, and we just get him being like, I know, and it's just great. Okay, we're gonna quickly talk about the accessibility of this storyline to new readers now, or readers who are not too immersed in the Avengers, X-Men, and I'm laughing because Eternals world. I imagine most aren't too deeply invested in the Eternals. Nothing against you if you're an Eternals fan, nothing against the Eternals even. They're literally not as popular and don't have many runs that are up there. Gillen's recent one that came out that sort of led into all of this. I read a couple of issues of that. I remember really enjoying it, but I don't remember too many plot details, and I remember people at the time were very, very into that run. But I'm digressing a little bit. I think this story, as much as they wanted to market it as being its own sort of self-contained thing, I think it is a challenge for new readers to get into this one. You need to have some familiarity with a lot of different aspects of Marvel lore. I mean, I would say, Eternals are probably much more of a deep cut, even with like the movie coming out and them trying to amplify that a little bit. But even to some degree, Celestials, I think they're not too present in a lot of Marvel comics that you can read. I know they do show up, and I know you probably will give me tons of examples where they do show up, but all I'm saying is it's very easy to go through and read a few characters of Marvel or a few groups that you like of Marvel and never see the Celestials pop up. I think you also kind of need to have been reading Krakoa era X-Men stuff for this to really fulfill you. I imagine if you're just an Avengers fan going into this without having knowledge of what's going on at Krakoa at this time with the Quiet Council specifically and all that, you'd be like, oh, what is going on here? Like, the X-Men are working with Sinister right now. All of this stuff is really strange, and they've got their own nation. I don't understand. Like, Arakko is there. Huh? Mars, they terraformed the planet, and that is in no way to critique the actual elements of the story that involve Krakoa and Arakko and things like that. In fact, one of the really cool parts of the story is the whole battle that goes on Mars, Arakko, with Uranos versus the Quiet Council equivalent that Arakko has, which is their Great Ring. So if you're not too familiar with any of these characters or any of these books or any of the actual runs that were going on at the time that this was released, I do think that there is a lot of expositional stuff they give you in the books to try and fill in the blanks for you, but really I think you need the intricacies a little bit better to appreciate the story. I do still think though that there would be a lot of high stakes drama that could be captivating to you even if you don't have all of the knowledge, and also this book just posits a lot of like interesting philosophical questions. Okay, moving on to some pros and cons of this book. I have to say, I love Gillen as a writer. I think his dialogue is tight, it's engaging, he knows where he's going with his arcs, he's great at balancing action with introspection, he's just really good at what he does. The artwork across most of the book is also really great. Valerio Schiti, fantastic, phenomenal stuff. Esad Rabik, I believe, also really stunning visuals. Some slight issues with the book. Basically the Eternals, I would say. For them to get us where we need to go with the story, we have to focus a lot on some Eternals aspects. And there's compelling stuff in there, but for the most part, the Eternals they do not resonate with me in a way that is interesting. I found reading about them a little boring at times, frankly. Maybe it'll work better for you. Maybe I'm just not a guy for the Eternals, but that's how I felt. Another slight issue, and I say slight, it's really, really minor, I think, because it's almost par for the course with the event omnibuses and events in general. Just the pacing in here can feel a little off sometimes. It just feels like we're going from one major conflict to another major conflict, boom, 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 and then a lot of the subplots and character stuff sometimes gets left to the wayside. I'm not saying it isn't entirely touched on, but it feels like it gets rushed. I didn't feel that way as much about the X-Men characters and books in here, but the Avengers stuff felt that way to me. And maybe I'm not so much an ongoing Avengers reader, and that's why I felt a little strange about it, so I would love to hear from, more hardcore Avengers fans than I am about what they thought of this. I would maybe say the exception is Captain America. He has a lot of really great stuff in this run about, perceived failures and whatnot, and I just really like the direction that they go with his character in here, too, and the actual plot beats of what happens to him. I think is pretty exciting. But also, and maybe it's just because I love the X-Men, so I'm reading everything basically through the lens of mutants and the X-Men, but it felt so much more like Captain America actually did just join the mutant books for a little bit there. So yeah, to start wrapping this up, I would say that this omnibus is worth picking up if you're someone who has a decent background with at least a couple of these character groups. The Eternals, I think you maybe don't need to know so much about. If you want to, you can try doing what I was trying to do at the time, which is read the Eternals by Gillen run. There was also a free comic book day inclusion that helps a little bit. But if you are new to any of these characters and want to start reading comics about them, I would say this is not the event omnibus for you to start with. Probably an event omnibus is not even the place for you to start. Feel free to check out the channel, maybe do a search of a character you like. We have plenty of omnibus reviews here. I'm using the the royal we. It's just me who runs this channel. But yeah, there's a lot of good stuff on this channel. There's also comic book analysis videos. Specifically, I usually analyze 80s era stuff. In the future, I'll probably do more contemporary analysis stuff. I also have an X-Men podcast on this channel called Your Favorite X-Men, where I sit down with a guest, we talk about their favorite X-Men character and why they resonate, and do a little analysis on them there. Really great. If you're a big X-Men fan, you're definitely going to want to check that one out. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for checking out this video. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. I would love to hear your thoughts on this book too. And with that, you all have a great rest of your day.